Hey guys, what's up? Sorry I haven't put up an upload in a while. I've been busy with some stuff. I'm currently directing a movie that I wrote, so I'm busy with that a lot. I'll let you know when there's any trailers or anything up. I can post it on my page. Also, I am currently working on some stuff for the channel that I didn't want to really mess around with doing too many videos until now. So I've been kind of working on some stuff of how to make my podcast better or how to make my reviews better. So you'll see some changes in the channel coming up soon. But because it's been such a long time since I put up an upload, I decided that I would want to put one up just to say that I am still here and I am still working on this channel and trying to improve it. I've just been doing some other stuff. I've been busy with some other things, and but I am constantly thinking about how I can do to improve this channel. So you are going to see some changes, like I said. If you've seen any of my other videos before, then you know I'm a huge fan of Community. So that's why I wanted to make this video. As you may or may not know, Community was just renewed by Yahoo for its sixth season. So I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite episodes from the series so far. Again, these are my personal favorite episodes, so these are totally my personal opinion, and if you have any different opinion, then I respect it. Quickly before I start the list, I'm going to say a couple honorable mentions because Community is my favorite comedy series and maybe my favorite series ever on television. So there's so many great episodes. So there's some that I just couldn't fit into the top 5 that I still wanted to talk about. I really wish I could give an honorable mention to almost every episode because that's how much I like the series. But I did pick out 4 that are special to me in some way, so here they are. Introduction to Film, otherwise known as the episode where Britta pays for Abed's film class. This is the first episode where you really find out that Abed wants to be a filmmaker. And the reason why I like this episode and why I included it on my list is for the emotional ending with Abed and his dad. This really gave depth into the Abed character aside from him being just a quirky side character. This just added so much more depth to his character, and I was amazed watching this episode, and I'm amazed every time I watch it. Just because of Abed's film at the end of the episode is really the standout of this episode and why I feel the need to include it, because I feel like this episode really brought to light how the true depth of Abed as a character. My next honorable mention is the paintball episode, Modern Warfare. What do I need to say? It's a beloved episode. Even though it's not on my top 5, I still love this episode and I felt the need to include it because this is the episode that pretty much put Community into the mainstream. Even though it's not really in the mainstream, it made it more popular than it was, and almost everybody loves this episode. Now, on to the bottle episode itself, Cooperative Calligraphy. This episode showed that Dan Harmon knows how to create a well done bottle episode. And that's really all I have to say about it. This episode is placed in the rankings of best bottle episodes of all time, so I felt the need to include it to this list. Not even the fact that it's just a great bottle episode, it's just a great character building episode of the series. And still mixing it with comedy, it has this more emotional depth into the characters that you don't really see up until this point as much. And the last honorable mention on my list is Mixology Certification, which is the episode where Troy turns 21 and they all go to the bar. This is one of the most emotional and darkest episodes of Community, and it still manages to blend it with the humor that Community is known for. When you watch this episode, you really get a sense of how heartfelt and deep this show is versus a lot of normal sitcoms, which I really like about this episode, and I really like what this episode did for the series. Now to actually start my list with number 5, which is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like you can probably remember the episode just by me saying the title because it's pretty self-descriptive. This is the episode where they play Dungeons and Dragons for the first time to help lift Neil or Fat Neil's spirits. The reason why this episode is so good for me is because um, even though it's a Dungeons and Dragons episode, which I love Dungeons and Dragons, so that was one of the perks for me of liking this episode. But it also manages to have Dungeons and Dragons dealing with a serious topic, which is depression and suicide, which not many people realize when watching this episode because it's like, oh yeah, it's a fun episode where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but they realize that the stakes of this episode are to prevent a bullied kid from committing suicide, which is pretty dark subject matter for a comedy series to get into, but that just shows how heartfelt Community and how dark Community can get. This episode, like so many others, perfectly blends comedy and heartfelt and dark moments. All this with the added bonus of getting to see a portrayal of one of the best games there is, which is Dungeons and Dragons, makes for a pretty incredible episode. Now for number four, and on my number four spot, I have the most recent episode on this list, which is Geothermal Escapism. For those who may not know, Geothermal Escapism is the episode where the floor is lava and Troy leaves. Now, this whole episode, as Troy's last episode, could have been this whole heartfelt thing where it's just a depressing goodbye the whole time, but they didn't do that. They managed to make the best, in my opinion, school survival episode. By school survival episode, I mean an episode where it's sort of an apocalyptic scenario, such as modern warfare, a fistful of paintballs or a few paintballs more, epidemiology. In my opinion, Geothermal Escapism was the best done of all these episodes where the whole school is pitted in this post apocalyptic sort of scenario when they're all against each other. This could be because watching this the whole time I know Troy is leaving at the end of this episode, so the whole time I am totally intrigued in watching this episode and my heart is slowly breaking throughout it. Also, the fact that it brings forward pretty fond childhood memories of playing The Floor is Lava with my friends when I was young. So, seeing a school wide, college wide game of The Floor is Lava for, I believe, a $50,000 prize, that was just an awesome thing to see. And it brought back so many memories of playing that when I was a kid. Obviously, not for $50,000 prize, but it was still fun. And then the episode ends with obviously Troy leaving the series. So obviously that was incredibly sad to see. And I really like the way they did it, that they didn't make it the whole episode of his tragic goodbye, and they didn't really deal with it until the very beginning of the episode a little bit, and then the very end of the episode, the last 3 minutes, and he got to see, have a goodbye with everyone. And then that was really sad, and I was already expecting the gut-wrenching feeling, but it was so well done, it made me even more sad. Just those last 3 minutes. If it was brought out too long and his goodbye was too prolonged, then I don't know if I would have reacted the same way I did, even though I still would have been incredibly sad that Donald Glover was leaving the series. But just watching this, those that last like 3, 4 minutes of him saying goodbye to everyone was just gut wrenching um, and heartbreaking, and it was really well done. And that's why this episode stands on this list because while having a great episode in itself, also having the extremely heartbreaking goodbye. Number three on my list is the source of Community's one and only Emmy, and this episode is Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. I'm assuming if you watch Community, then you know what episode I'm talking about. Yeah, it's the one made of clay. Sorry, it's not clay, it's stop motion, it's silicone dolls, whatever Abed says. This episode brilliantly takes the Christmas stop motion animated feel and adds it with this dark, just tragic sort of bow wrapped around it. Get it? Bow? Because Christmas. While we have the basic premise of the episode is Abed trying to find the meaning of Christmas, we also have the underlying tone that something seriously wrong is happening to him, which it is. He's having a psychotic break. I really like the way this episode was handled. In my opinion, this was one of the best handled episodes of Community. So we have the whole Christmas adventure thing happening and sort of the Willy Wonka thing going on, sort of. And also, it's not till the end where you find out the real heartbreaking, tragic reason why he's seeing this. And it's because his mom, uh, after seeing him every year with his parents' divorce, after visiting him every year on December 9th, decides she's not going to see him this year. And that is heartbreaking. So while we have a fun, spectacular looking, imaginative animated episode, we also have this heartbreaking moment during the episode and the heartbreaking realization that that's why this whole thing is happening. So this is a brilliantly handled episode of Community, and it's definitely one of my favorites. This is probably the episode of Community that I've seen the most amount of times. I love watching this episode over and over again for the songs, the all of Abed's either Willy Wonka or kind of Christmas caroly songs that he's just singing out of nowhere. So I like watching that episode for that. And then there's always the if I want a touching moment in a TV show or a heartbreaking moment, a sad moment, then I go and watch this episode and um, I feel the sadness, I guess. This is another episode that adds depth to Abed's character, such as the previously mentioned introduction to film, which I said about Abed's dad watching the movie and finally understanding that Abed has a way to communicate. This episode I found also added depth to his character, and even more maybe than that episode when you find out about his mom and his tradition and stuff, and him finally realizing that even though he used to do this with his mom every year, it's sometimes he needs to grow up and maybe not grow up, but move on and realize that she's moved on and he has a new family now too, which is the study group. That got really cheesy, so let's move on to number two. And my number two favorite episode of Community is Contemporary American Poultry. And if you don't know what episode that is, to say it bluntly, that is the Chicken Finger Gangster episode. You know, you got a real special show when you can describe an episode as the Chicken Finger Gangster episode. This episode brings to light one of the main reasons why I like Community, and that is for its ability to pay homage to films or film genres without actually directly parodying the episode. I mean, any TV show can do, say, a parody of Star Wars, and technically Community has done a parody of Star Wars and has said it's a parody of Star Wars, but it's not following the Star Wars format at all. It's a Star Wars style. It's an homage to the style and the brilliance of that movie. They're not directly doing that show. One person isn't Luke. One person, there's not a Darth Vader. It is a Star Wars feel, and that's what this episode does so well. It has a gangster feel. It's not saying this is Goodfellas. It's not saying this is The Godfather. It's saying this episode is going to be paying homage to these genres. And pay homage it does, and brilliantly so, may I add. The scene where they're all sitting around the table with the chicken fingers, kind of like the scene in Goodfellas where they're all sitting around with the cigarettes. That is just brilliantly done. That is brilliant writing, and that is writing by someone who knows pop culture. And come on, who doesn't want to see power-hungry gangster Abed? In my opinion, this is the episode that best represents a film or film genre. This film brilliantly is a gangster mafia episode of the show without being an exact mafia parody. It's comedic when it needs to be, and it's not comedic when it needs to be, and without making the concept too ridiculous. Because when you really think about it, it's a guy who gets power hungry over chicken fingers. But when you watch this episode, you say, "Wow, that could happen. That I buy it." And that's what I really like about this show is that they can take ridiculous out there concepts like this, and you buy it because they make you believe that this could actually happen, which in my opinion, is what a show should do. And that's why I like this episode so much. It does it so well. It takes a ridiculous concept and it does it so well. And it takes a genre, a film genre, or even certain films, and it pays homage to these films so brilliantly. That's why I like this episode so much. And I couldn't help but like be giddy when I hear the Goodfellas music in that episode. Plus Annie's boobs. Oh, and the monkey. And are you ready for my number one episode? Are you sure you're ready? I think you're ready. My number one episode of Community always has been, and most likely always will be, Remedial Chaos Theory. This is the episode, in my opinion, that not only shows Community has a fantastic cast, fantastic ensemble cast, some fantastic, quirky, pop culture-y, pointy-outy episodes. This is the episode that shows this show is brilliantly written. I don't know why I said written like that. This show is brilliantly written. At a housewarming party for Troy and Abed's new apartment, we see them sitting around a table waiting to play Yahtzee and waiting for the pizza to show up. When the pizza buzzer goes to decide who will get the pizza, they roll dice. This is when we see a point of view from every scenario, every timeline that could have happened. You know the theory, the multiverse theory? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. The multiverse theory states that there's an infinite number of universes for every conceivable possibility, and that's what this episode explores. This episode shows exactly what would have happened in any scenario of that dice rolling, which is just an incredible thing to do. And it's incredible writing and incredible depth for a comedy series to go to. For a comedy series to explore the multiverse theory, that is incredible to me. And the way they do it, the brilliant way they pull it off, and the way while you're paying attention, how everything kind of sort of fits together throughout all the different timelines, and obviously the darkest timeline is an added bonus. All this just makes for an incredible episode. This is an episode of Community, and probably the only episode of any show ever that I can play and say every line word for word. That's how many times I've seen this episode. This and Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas I've watched like a million times. So both of those episodes are kind of tied for me being able to say the lines. But I have actually recently gone through Remedial Chaos Theory and said every line word for word, which I'll admit is a little sad. But it does show how good this episode it is, because this episode not only is an incredible episode watching it the first time. It's an incredible episode watching it every time. This episode for me has the most rewatch value. Every time you watch it, you see something new and something different. And it's just such an incredible thing to me for an episode of a comedy series about a group of 7 people at a community college to do this. This show is just so well known for its pop culture references, but um, this episode shows that it's more than that, and it can actually write a solid television episode. Thanks for watching, or listening, I guess. I will be posting some new videos of my podcast, Speaking of Gary, because I've done some changes to it. I had some new guest stars. I have a couple episodes filmed, so I will be posting those within the next couple weeks, and I will be posting some reviews of possibly Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I have seen it. I haven't filmed a review yet. I'm thinking about it. I may post a review within the next couple days for that. If I don't, then that's because I've decided not to do it. There will be a review out for Guardians of the Galaxy when that comes out, because that is the film for me that I'm excited for, and I really hope it doesn't let me down. I've been hearing good things about it, so I really don't think it will be. But stay tuned for that review. Stay tuned for a bunch of reviews. And hey, to make it easier to stay tuned, press that subscribe button down below this video for easy access to all my videos. They're going to pop right up on your YouTube homepage. It's going to say new video from me. I don't think it says exactly that. I can't remember. But yeah, subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And comment below, what's your favorite episode, Community? So again, guys, thanks for watching, and subscribe if you're a fan of movies, television shows, or comic books. I will be posting some more videos probably a couple times a week. So stay tuned and subscribe to get those. Bye.